justice or else. And our people. So in studio we have to join us and help us along that conversation, Brother Dr. Umar Johnson. Greetings and good afternoon.
Peace and love, brother. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, bro. Let's jump right in, man. We talk about Sankofa. We talk about warriorhood a lot on this show. Mm-hmm. One of the things I know that you've been on the front lines of for a while is really this issue. Most people know you as the guy who talks about special education and black boys. Mm-hmm. So let's start there. But I really want you to, number one, define for our listening audience who might not be familiar what menticide is. You know, the word that was coined by Dr. Bobby Wright. Okay. And related to the conversation about genocide. And then let's talk about the way that manifests in school systems.
Well, for me, menticide would be the systematic destruction of a people's understanding of who they were, what they are, and what their potential could potentially be. And the potential is the most important. Killing of the vision and killing of the dream. This is very important, especially when you deal with African children, because us reclaiming our past is a threat, but they're not as concerned about that because we've been at the Black Book movement for about 40, 50 years. And the white man could clearly see that nothing has really come out of that tangible. So he's not afraid of us learning that we built the pyramids. He's not afraid of us learning about all the great black inventions. What he wants to kill is the potential and the vision and the hope that we can transform the reality. So menticide is more about projecting into the future and preventing a regeneration of African people from taking place.
Yeah, I talk about a soul murder of your aspirations.
Yes.
And so when you just talk to young brother, I'm just chilling. You ask what they thinking about. Oh, not much, man. I'm just hanging.
Right.
It's like you did already. If as a man, as a young brother, 18, 19, when you're supposed to be at that age of pioneer warriorship and you just chilling.
Yes, sir.
And so it's that that murdered aspiration that menticide really perpetuates.
Exactly.
And it happens regularly. It happens in the media. It happens in the community. But it really happens when our children go to school. Talk about the dynamics there.
Well, I think one thing that we got to keep in mind when we talk about miseducation, black children don't have an issue learning. Black boys don't have an issue getting an education. School is not the problem. It's the treatment that they receive in school that's the problem. On top of that, many of our children are keenly aware that the education that they are receiving is not preparing them in any meaningful form to be economically competitive with white children when they graduate. They know that the public school system is designed for them to fail. And now it's not even so much about designing the schools for our kids to fail. It's about designing them to prepare our children for mass incarceration. Public school was created to produce basically educated, low-wage earners. So it was about training, not teaching.
Right. Training for specific jobs that existed at that specific time,
but no longer
exist.
So it's all about exactly. So it's about jail, and that's why you also see the charterization of public schools, the shutting down of public schools, not just in Philadelphia but globally. Philadelphia is a pilot project, if you will, because it has the largest amount of charter schools in the country. So this is a pilot city to see how efficiently you can shut down public school and then ultimately come back and shut down the charters as well. I mean, when I look at ADHD and the learning disability, because those are the two biggest weapons of mass destruction used in special ed, in the psychology in general, and it's amazing how white people can create a diagnosis and have millions of black folk use it as a justification and an excuse for why their sons don't have self-control and discipline. You follow? And on the flip side, have them think their child is abnormal when they're perfectly normal. When you look at the diagnostic criteria for ADHD, it's normal behavior. Can't stay focused, plays around, can't sit still. What 6 or 7 year old isn't going to lose focus?
Exactly.
Isn't going to have trouble sitting still? But again, the faith in the system. We still have supreme faith in white folk to know what's right and to be the be all and end all on everything. And it's a shame because once you put your kid in special ed, it's hard to get them out. Once you put them on medicine, it's hard to stop. So my biggest thing is just say no. No, I'm not getting my child tested for special ed. I know why he can't read. He can't read because y'all didn't teach him.
Actually, as Philly is known, even with the charter schools, for a good number of African-centered charter schools. When you go to other cities, they don't really have as many African-centered, self-proclaimed African-centered charter schools as Philly. How come we have to educate Why is it just important for our people to get the message? And then what are some of the ways, some of the forms that we can go about it? I talk a lot on this show about homeschooling. I talk a lot about the need for us to resurrect private schools for our children and figure out how we finance and pay for those. Because I believe as long as we're handing our children over to somebody else to form their mind, menticide is going to take place.
Exactly. And no culture at any point in world history, regardless of the period of time, has ever been able to come out from under oppression when the oppressor was responsible for the education of the children. The reason why you got to have self-education is because only the culture can determine where it needs to go. And education prepares the children to take you where you need to go. So no one can teach black children how to survive white supremacy, how to overcome white supremacy, how to be victorious against white supremacy, but them. Education is the art of acquiring power, protecting that power, yielding that power, and defending that power. Your opposition will never give you the tools necessary to rival it for control. I always say it should be against the law for white women or white men to be responsible for educating black children, because you are the direct competitor to the black child in this society. It should be against the law. You see, that's like my father owns the opposite team and I'm coaching your team.
Right.
You see, it's a built-in system that guarantees my people will come out on top. No woman, I don't care how fair you think she's going to be, is going to prepare your son to compete with hers for the same job or for the same education.
Correct, without a doubt. So in that vein, you're starting up.
Yes, the Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, RBG Leadership Academy. We're trying to get the historic St. Paul's College, black college in Lawrenceville, Virginia, closed down 3 years ago. They want $2 million. That's the asking price. So we're asking everybody to make a donation to that. You can go to gofundme.com/Dr. Umar, DRUMAR. You can also go to my website, drumarjohnson.com, and link to GoFundMe there, or you can mail in a check or money order. So we still pushing. If we don't get St. Paul's, we're still going to get a school somewhere. It's just that I want St. Paul's because it would be perfect. And my vision is a residential school. And the reason why I want a residential school is if you only educate the child for half the day, they're only being educated half the way. And I want the children to go to sleep and wake up at the institution, because half of education is from 3 until 8. When you're done the academic intellectual side of education, there should be the practical side, the farming, learning of the different trades, the spiritual work that has to be done, the dietary and the nutritional science. There's a whole other education that should go on when school is over.
So the original building was a college post-secondary campus.
Yes, it's a college campus.
And when you do your schools,
it'll be a grade school, K to 12.
K to 12. Just wanted to clarify that. And again, if people want to support it, what are the ways, the channels for them to
They can do so by gofundme.com/Dr. Umar, which they can link through on my website, drumarjohnson.com. They can also mail, check, or money order to payable to FDMG Academy, P.O. Box 6872, Philadelphia 19132. Also want to let your parents know that if they like to work at the school, anyone from the community, not just parents, they can send their resumes in to FDMG Resumes, FDMGresumes@gmail.com. And every Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I host a Black Parent Teleconference where parents can call up anywhere in the world and ask any question about their child education or mental health. That's free every Tuesday, and you can contact me through the website.
How can Africa be so poor and yet be materially so rich? It's real simple. The answer lies in the Structural Adjustment Programs, SAP, the Structural Adjustment Programs that are imposed on African nations by the International Monetary Fund of Washington, D.C., the World Bank of Washington, D.C., and USAID. These three organizations come into Africa, loan money, and then charge an interest rate on that money that they know the African nations can never pay back, thusly re-enslaving the entire nation and, in fact, the entire continent. Why was Muammar Gaddafi killed? Muammar Gaddafi was murdered because he, along with the other African heads of state, were about to bring into existence Africa's first central bank. They were erecting a central bank in Africa, which was going to do what? Back its money to the resources under the ground in Africa. Now, what would that have done to the global economic order? Remember, the United States dollar isn't backed on any natural resource. The British pound isn't backed on any natural resource. The Canadian dollar, the European Union, their currency isn't backed on any natural resource because Europe doesn't have a lot of natural resources. Africa does. So if they would have been successful in creating a central bank of Africa, coming up with a unitary currency, and then backing that currency to the material wealth under the soil, they would have bankrupted every other economic system in this world from America to Europe to China. That was revolution. And that's why Muammar Gaddafi had to be assassinated, because he was about to help the African heads of state eliminate modern slavery and